The door is realistically open for the United States to overtake Canada as the #1 hockey country in the world. Now, winning back-to-back World Juniors means nothing in the grand scheme of things for the senior level of hockey, but at the same time, the last best-on-best tournament we had was in 2016, so there's not a whole lot to go on. So if the U.S. manages to win the upcoming Four Nations face-offs and the Olympics in 2026, well, that would truly be a golden era for the States. But the fact of the matter is, just based on population differences, it probably wouldn't just be an era. If the U.S. take over, good luck taking that mantle back. Yes, when we look at generation-defining players, they've almost always been Canadian. But how long until that changes? Since the World Cup of Hockey in 2016, there's been an almost 15% decrease in the number of registered hockey players in Canada. We're in the States. In that same time frame, participation has grown by almost 10%. One country is trending up and the other down. The National Development Program is working. The U.S. just went back-to-back at the World Juniors for the first time in their history. And Hockey Canada, well, it's obviously not. They just missed out on the medal round for the second year in a row for the first time in over 40 years. Now, I still think on paper that Canada is better than the United States. They should win the Four Nations and the Olympics. But on paper, their World Junior team was probably the best as well. All this to say is that Canada's claim to fame is being the #1 hockey country. But it is not outrageous to say that they're hanging on to that title by a thread. So on that note, welcome into Top Shelf, presented by our friends over at Skyscanner. I'm Aidan Thakkar, joined by John Matisz, Levi Smith, and Josh Wegman. Happy New Year's, fellas. Maybe kind of an odd kickoff to the New Year's with how bad that went for Canada at the World Juniors. Were you surprised with that, all that stuff? Was it a good New Year's, better New Year's than Canada, John?
I had a way better New Year's. We had some people over. There were some drinks flowing. But no, I mean, the end result of USA winning gold, not particularly surprising. The story that was Canada and how they bowed out. So it all sort of relates back to your monologue there off the top, though. Like, the National Team Development Program is producing gold.
They're cleaning up, and it seems like Canada's just so much pressure on these kids every single year. And then now it's like 2 years in a row, not even in the medal round. It's like something's got to change. It's so sad. So sad watching them. But that U.S. team, guys, is just fantastic. And I want to start with a couple players from that team. Ryan Leonard, Cole Hudson, MVP of the tournament, and one of the first, I think it's the first defenseman to ever outright lead the World Juniors in points. That set could be wrong. So if you want to fact check, if you want to fact check me in the comments, I saw that on X and I definitely didn't double check that one. But anyways, Cole Hudson was fantastic in that tournament, as was Ryan Leonard, and they're both a part of the Capitals organization, one of the top teams in the Eastern Conference. I think the top team in the Eastern Conference. The Capitals have done this retool thing better than any team I think I've ever seen do it. They're still in the Ovechkin era where they're chasing down the goal record, but they're like poised to be at the top of the Metro right now if they can keep it going. And it's not just Ovechkin, it's young guys, and they've got lots of prospects coming. No real top-end picks. It starts to bring on the question, is a retool better than a rebuild? Josh.
I don't think so. Washington has done it really well. They draft super well. It's a really well-run organization, so I think they're more the exception than the rule. If you look at all the cup winners from the salary cap era, all but 3 of them, I think Detroit, Anaheim, Boston, and Vegas, all of them at one point bottomed out, picked in the top 5, and built a team around an elite player. I mean, you look at Florida last year with Barkov. That's not possible unless they bottom out for him. So it can work, a retool, but I'm more inclined to blow it up, pick high, get those superstar players, build around them, and go from there.
I think the league's become more superstar-centric, too. So I 100% agree with you, Josh, where you hit the nail on the head. Like, the Caps are more of an exception to the rule. And they've, like, I think it's kind of hard to repeat what they've done. They brought in, like, 5 or 6 guys in their 20s. All of them have hit. Including goaltending, which doesn't always happen, right? You acquire a goalie, it could go south real quick. Dubois is playing well, and let's face it, he hasn't played well for a few years here. And, Mangiapane might be the only guy from the summer that isn't, that isn't exceeding expectations. You've got Chikrin doing that. You've got, even guys internally like McMichael and Protas. Like, everything is going well, and who knows if that'll continue for the rest of the season. But it's kind of one of those scenarios where, like, it's hard to replicate.
Let me say, too, I mean, you want to see how hard it is to replicate. Look at, like, the Caps' biggest rival over the last 15 years now, the Pens. they tried to do it too, keeping Crosby and Malkin and Letang and all those guys around. And I don't think they've won a playoff series in the last 6 years. And they've been the oldest team in hockey for a while now, and it's not turning into anything. And they've got an even deeper core of old great hockey players in those three guys. And so they're headed in a tough direction when those guys hang it up, because they don't really have anything to build around. Whereas you look at the Caps, and they've got McMichaels and the Stromes and all these guys who they just smashed on, honestly, bringing them in. I think that's the key, is like buying low on the right players. And that's what they've done, and it's worked to perfection.
I think when executing a retool properly, I think it's still better than a rebuild, or safer than a rebuild in my mind. Because, yes, rebuilding, you can be Florida, you can get a Barkov, or you can be Colorado and get a McKinnon, Oilers, and McDavid, Nuge, all those guys, obviously. But you can also be a Buffalo, or you can be Detroit, and you bottom out, and you don't get a top pick, or not enough top picks to make it work. So rebuilding, in theory, you can get that superstar, but what if you don't?
Yeah, the tank's got to be well
stuck and suck for years and years and years. And I think there's teams that have to make that decision, and I think you have to make that decision based on do you trust your scouting department enough to say okay, if we pick 12 a few times or 14, can we hit on a couple picks here? Or are we better suited to just getting the safe guys in the top 5 and just blowing this thing up? Yeah. Do we have the fan base to support that? There's all these questions, and I think the Capitals have done well with where they are. And so, if you're headed down to the American capital to see some of their young stars, maybe check out OV Chase down Gretz. Well, Skyscanner can help you save in your travel down there. Just hit the link in our bio or description to score those top shelf deals. One team as well who would love to finish at the top of the East, the Toronto Maple Leafs. They're at the top of the Atlantic right now. They would love to have that number 1 seed to get the easiest matchup possible, especially considering the 8 seed in the East should relatively, it's looking like a Pittsburgh, or I think Montreal's in that spot right now. Hit Montreal, Pittsburgh, Ottawa, that's where you want to be for a first round matchup. So Levi, I'll ask you, how crucial is it for Toronto that they win the Eastern Conference?
I think crucial, any way you want to phrase it, it's the utmost importance, because the Leafs have the longest or one of the longest playoff streaks in all of hockey, 8 years. 2 other teams also have the same length, I believe, playoff streak. They are both in the Atlantic Division, the Lightning and the Bruins. So you look at these teams that just are so dominant when it comes to the playoffs, and are always there, and they're always in the Leafs division, and the Leafs always play them in the first round. So at least, I'm not saying there's still a chance that if they do win the division, they're going to have to play somebody, but at least it's going to be the lowest team on the totem pole out of those teams, or it could be someone else. But it's just, I can't understate how significant it is for them to continue doing this, given where they've been every time they've made the playoffs, because they've never won the division. Every team that's been in the Stanley Cup Finals since 2019 has been in their division, and I believe that 6 of the 8 teams they've played since they started this streak were Atlantic teams that they played in the first round. So it's imperative that they at least just one time over this entire streak, give themselves a better chance to get out of the first round, to play somebody easier in the second round, because I understand that, sure, they choke in the playoffs, and every that talk will never die down, but you do have to look at the positions that they've been in, where I don't love this playoff format at all. And it's obviously not benefited Toronto, but the position that they've been in over the course of this entire drought that they're on, they're just playing really, really good teams right off the bat. So I think it'd be really interesting to at least see how they do, if they can win. And you know what? If they lose first round, the haters win again.
Yeah,
it's the only direction I can go with that. But yeah, really important.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's crucial. I think it would help a lot, but at the end of the day, they just have to get it done in the postseason. It's just as simple as that. It doesn't really matter where they finish. Obviously, finishing higher helps. Being the home seed helps, but at the end of the day, they just got to get out of their own way in the playoffs and get it done when it matters most.
What do you guys think about the urgency with this season in the Leafs? Because the Matthews thing is concerning, right? He's got this injury. It's mysterious, but he goes all the way to Germany to deal with it. He still is kind of in and out of the lineup. Aside from a couple games, hasn't looked himself. It seems counterintuitive to say this, but is this the year to go all in? Because maybe his health deteriorates and it's like a Mark Stone situation where he's constantly in and out, and you kind of have to capitalize on okay, it's going to get worse over time. Is this our sort of lane? Is this our path? Is this our year? And obviously, Craig Berube's had a pretty big impact on the team. Like, everything's going well generally. So, hey, do you push all your chips in the middle of the table when you see Matthews, when he's at his best, he looks fantastic, but, like, he's not always at his best. And will that continue moving forward? So it's sort of like an interesting time for the Leafs in terms of what's going to happen there. And then also Mitch Marner is still unsigned. Does he leave in the offseason? So what do you guys think? Like, do you think this is a push your chips in the middle of the table type of season?
I feel like it's got to be a go for it. I feel like every year's got to be a go for
well,
it.
Sure.
Though. When you've got these guys, like, you just got, like, who cares about your first round pick that's going to be picked 28? Like, yes, they hit on a guy in theory in Easton Cowan, but how many years are they away from Easton Cowan playing like a massive role on this team? Like, maybe he gets there, but what's more important, that or giving yourself a shot to win and giving yourself a shot to play Pittsburgh in the first round instead of a Florida or a Boston, one of your bogey teams? You don't want to play a bogey team in the first round. No. Like, yes, you're going to have to beat one of those teams regardless to go to the Cup, but you'd rather play them in a conference final when you've got some serious confidence going, rather than the first round where everyone's making the jokes before the series has even started, right? Like, that's my thing is you go for it right now, and you don't worry about what's going on in the future. You don't worry about what's going to happen even this summer. You just say, let's see what we can do right now with this core.
Yeah, I agree. I think you got to sort of live in the present, like you're saying, and you have a great team this year, and you got to go for it that way. And I think this is the best playoff built team they've had in the Matthews Marner era. The blue line is probably the best it's been in a while. They could still use maybe one more, but that shutdown pairing of McCabe and Tanev makes them pretty dangerous come playoff time. I think the goaltending is by far the best they've ever had, maybe since Ed Belfour, between Stolars and Woll. So, I think they got to go all in. You don't know if Tavares can repeat a season like this. He's playing well. I know his cap hit will be lower next year, but Marner's will be higher if he's back. So I don't think you can worry about next year, and I think you got to look at what the team is now, and you got to go all in, I think.
I want to flip to the other side of the country, to a team that was really good last year in the Vancouver Canucks, but now is just drama central, and that would be the Vancouver Canucks, obviously just complete mess right now with Pettersson and JT Miller just, like, absolutely infighting right now.
Soap opera.
Yes, it's a soap opera, and the talk is that one of these guys is going to get dealt. They don't know which, like, they're entertaining offers on both of them, or something like that. And I want to talk trade packages. We talked who says no. I don't even know if either of these guys get dealt or which one is more likely, but I just want to talk about a couple ideas for both of them. I think the biggest rumor on JT Miller's side that I've seen is the New York Rangers. They had him at one point. Apparently, they really want him again. They're obviously willing to make trades. They've already done it this year. So who says no to this deal? I saw this online. JT Miller for Mika Zibanejad and a couple third-round picks. I don't think those are huge impacts, but Miller, Zibs, who says no to this deal?
I feel like Vancouver says no in terms of Zibanejad. You're kind of bringing in another problem. Like, there's not much incentive there. Like, I'd rather. Well, first of all, with this whole thing with Pettersson and Miller, like, I feel like the Canucks have to be really careful here. I mean, these are two star players. Their team is built around the top of their lineup: Hughes, Demko, these two guys, and, like, it's really dangerous to just trade one away because two guys don't get along. Like, they got to figure it out, Miller and Pettersson. I don't know, like, all the behind the scenes nuances, but it's a little ridiculous to just trade a guy because he doesn't get along with another guy on the team. But anyways, with this trade specifically, I don't think the Canucks win this. Like, Zibanejad has been declining for a couple of years. This year in particular, it's looked pretty ugly. Like, you could argue he's having a worse season than Miller or Pettersson. And those thirds don't really do much for me in the grand scheme. And, like, JT Miller's contract is pretty good at $8 million for the next, like, I think it's 8 years.
I think it's five
more.
I think he's in year 3 of a 8-year deal or something like that, or year 2 of
$8 million's nothing now. And when the cap keeps going up, so I wouldn't do it if I were the Canucks.
Yeah. You guys agree?
Yeah, I do, but I just want to say, I think, you know what can cure all feuds? Winning. And the Canucks aren't winning right now, so that's part of why this is an issue. If they start winning games, this could get swept under the rug. But, yeah, I agree. I just don't think Zibanejad is anything they want to deal with.
Not
Too
worth
much decline.
Not worth blowing it up that way.
All right.
For Zibanejad.
The other one, going back to the team we were just talking about, saw this one as well. We were talking about Mitch Marner because he doesn't have a contract lined up. JT Miller, Mitch Marner, straight up. Josh Leisman, what do you think?
I'm going to say Leafs say no, just because Marner is a lot younger, and I know Miller's signed, but I don't think they're scared about whether they can get Marner signed. It's whether they want to. I know the number might be higher than they want, but I think Leafs say no.
Yeah, and to do this in season would be wild, right? Like Marner's having this fantastic year, and now we're shaking it up with this blockbuster where even though Miller kind of brings a different element to their team, speaking of dressing rooms that have maybe, not enough different personalities, that might be the Leafs, right? You insert him in there and he's sort of the yin to the yang with Nylander and Matthews and being that sort of vocal extrovert or whatever you want to call it, the abrasive guy. So that's kind of an interesting angle to it. But no, I don't think the Leafs do it. Although the Canucks, I think, would be interested in this, assuming that Marner's, goes, I'll wink, I'll re-sign. So yeah, I would say Canucks do it. Leafs don't.
I think this one's interesting though because Marner's been great this year, and he's been good for like a good portion of his time in Toronto. He just plays in Toronto. That's why he gets a lot of hate. But I don't know. Like, I don't think JT Miller's exactly the player, but I mean, could this be maybe I'm foreshadowing, but like, could this be a perfect sell high spot? Because who knows if Marner will have this trade value? Because if you tried to do this trade like a year ago or so, or maybe even further back, I don't know if it's as one-sided.
I think 12 months ago, the Canucks say no straight up to this deal. JT Miller's playing as the best hockey. Marner's struggling, and you got a guy locked up for like the prime of his career still, versus giving Marner 8 years at like 13 and a half, 14.
These guys are both elite players. They're both 100-point players.
But you're getting $5 million or $6 million cheaper probably. But where you're at with the Leafs right now, you can't do it because of maybe in the summer they got that offer in the summer. I think. Brad Treliving's going, not even thinking, giving it a second thought if he hears about that in July. But it's hearing about it now. Like, it clears up space now. It does all the things that you really need to. But I think at this point, I would agree with you guys that they say no. We'll switch over to the other drama queen in Vancouver, Elias Pettersson. They got two of them. This is the Elias Pettersson that is really good right now. I'm sure the other one's pretty good, but just not yet dominating the NHL like this guy here. Elias Pettersson to another rival in Calgary for Nazem Kadri, Rasmus Andersson, and the New Jersey Devils 2025 first-round pick. I'm a little biased on this one, so Levi, I'll let you take it. Who says no?
I don't think that Calgary says yes to this. I think they're saying no, to be honest, because just I don't know, actually. The direction that they're headed right now, like, I still hope that they're not trying to be a fringe playoff team. So I guess in that sense it would make sense. But like Kadri and Anderson, I just think the value that they bring to a team pushing to the playoffs versus a Calgary Flames is way more. Like, I think that they could get those guys to a team that's really contending right now. Like we were talking about the Leafs. Imagine that package going off to the Leafs. They would get a boatload of young prospects and picks and everything else that Calgary needs to really do a rebuild. And so, to give all of that to Vancouver just for Elias Pettersson, who is at a low point in his career right now, I just don't think that you do it. I think it makes sense, sure, on paper for Calgary. You're getting rid of two older guys and bringing in a guy that's supposed to be better and younger. But I think in the grand scheme of things, I wouldn't do it, especially, too, because they're rivals.
I would do it if I were Calgary based on, like, they need a superstar level player. And I think Pettersson at his best is one of the, top 5, 10 two-way centers in the game. So I think there would be a temptation. You'd have to figure out, okay, is this whole Pettersson down year, is it strictly like he's in his own head, he needs to get out of Vancouver, will it change the scenery, change anything? If the answer to that is yes, it will change, then you start thinking, okay, like, let's get Kadri out of there. Like, obviously Anderson would be a great guy to re-sign, the first round pick, whatever, if you're able to get a star for it. So I don't mind this for Calgary. And then Vancouver, I guess if they're really sold on getting rid of Pettersson, the package is solid. I don't love the Kadri inclusion in terms of the length of his contract and whatnot, but it's an interesting one. Like, this is, out of the three that we've gone through, this one gets the brain going a little bit.
Okay, and then the last one, Pettersson to Buffalo in exchange for Dylan Cousins as the main piece, but also Devin Levi, Noah Ostlund, and the 2025 Buffalo first-round pick. I feel like that's a huge asset. Like, this would be a haul for Elias Pettersson in my mind, but Buffalo could be a little desperate. Who says no, John?
I think Buffalo says no. Like, as much as things are real dire there, and Pettersson would look fantastic in their jersey, and he's locked up, so he can't just jet because he doesn't like Buffalo. I just think that, Cousins, if you give up on him too early, it's going to bite you. Levi, same thing. Ostlund, we don't even know what he's going to be as an NHLer. And then that first round pick, if it's not protected in any way, lottery protected, like that could be a top 5 pick. So this is
top
just a
3 pick.
Yeah, this is a big haul. Like if it was like just Cousins and Ostlund or something, I think that's more palatable if you're the Sabres. But yeah, that's too many assets.
Agree, disagree?
So in the proposal line, it said it was top 5 protected.
Okay.
So I lean towards Canucks say no. And I just think it's not enough sure things coming back. I know Cousins is signed long term, but if that pick is like pick 7, that's not a surefire.
What does that do
you're
for
getting
them?
back. Yeah. I think maybe if you add Bowen Byram to this, maybe you take out Levi and Ostlund. I think that would make it really spicy because I think if you're getting a center and a D-back, you're filling 2 needs. Cousins is locked up long term. Byram still has some team control, so I think that could make it interesting. But maybe then Buffalo, that's a little too much for them, but they could also be desperate to make a big splash like this.
Well, we still got a little while to the trade deadline when this may all come to a head. But in the meantime, if you want to check out the Drama Queens live in person, Skyscanner can save you money on your next flight to Vancouver. Link or bio to get those deals. Moving on from that, John, we are about at the mid-season part of this season, and I know you've been looking at the trends of the last few years of this season. Let's get into that notebook. Let's empty it. What have you noticed so far this year?
Yeah, so let's talk about the modern power play. And as you'll see with the chart that's going to go up here in a second, like this isn't an overnight sensation that the modern power play is absolutely destroying the penalty kill league-wide. I mean, it's been a pretty consistent trend here, but I think it's nice at midseason to take a step back and think about why modern power plays are so deadly. So the first thing I'll hit on is just some sort of basics of what we see with every power play these days. I mean, they've got the 4 forwards, 1D that obviously makes it more deadly in terms of skill. We've got the drop pass in the neutral zone, which everyone hates, but it does help you get in the zone nice and quickly. And then we've got, the bumper roll that sort of revolutionized the power play and gave teams a lot more, I guess, versatility of passing the puck to the slot and moving it around. And there's just more elite shooters than ever before, and teams are using that to their advantage. So that's what jumps off the page for me immediately. And then I talked to 3 NHL coaches this week about the modern power play, and Spencer Carberry in Washington had a great long answer to this question. And he talked interestingly enough about net front presence. He said that, like, if you go back 5 years ago, there was less talk about it, less emphasis on it, and he feels like now coaches are just completely obsessed with having a net front presence. And that means, flash screens, which are more sophisticated than what we saw back in the day where guys would just stand there and hope for the puck to hit them. And also there's a lot of playmaking happening in the net front area. I mean, the percentage of a goal going in when you make a pass through the crease to your teammate is like astronomically high. So that was pretty interesting. And he also mentioned, Carberry, that he thinks that penalty kills are just easy to pre-scout these days. So, obviously every team before they go up against their next opponent looks at what they do. And he just finds that, either penalty kills are aggressive or conservative. And it's just easy to kind of dial in on that and attack their weaknesses. And that the penalty kills just have no answer to just some basic analysis in the power play room. So I thought that was also interesting. And then John Tortorella, he harped on east-west passing and how it's difficult to block shots as a penalty killing unit now. Like there are, more sophisticated ways of blocking shots than there were previously, guys going in, layers so that it's harder to get through those seams. But ultimately, when you're passing across, say the top of the circle on the left, the top of the circle on the right for a one-timer, good luck stopping that, both the goalie and the shot blocker and the penalty killers there. So that was interesting. And then Lindy Ruff in Buffalo, again, another sort of little tidbit here with the modern power play. He talked about the interchangeability of players. So obviously a power play, 5 players. Sometimes the guy at the top, the point man, usually the defenseman, he ends up at the goal line and he's playmaking. Or the guys on the flanks who usually fire one-timers, they end up in the bumper spot. And it's kind of disorienting for penalty kills to look up and all of a sudden the guy who you thought you were covering is on the other side of the ice. So the fact that there's so much versatility in players these days that are on power plays and they can, take a one-timer, play make from the goal line, be the bumper guy, and you have 5 guys that can do all that. Next thing you know, it's almost positionless for the power play, and and units can really feast on penalty kills. So, yeah, I just thought, hey, it's midseason. Let's dig into a trend, and 21%. Rate across the league. It's pretty wild. This is like 1980s, 1970s style power play percentage, and it looks like it's not stopping.
Yeah, fair enough. I remember when Buffalo just traded for Bowen Byram. It was like his first game, and they're on the power play. They put him on the power play, and he like makes a pass and does like this weird cycle thing down because he's coming from Colorado, right? Great team in Colorado, and you could just see it. Like he goes to move like he would playing on the power play in Colorado, and nobody else does anything. And he's like, okay, so this is the difference between a well-coached power play and one that wasn't. Obviously, Lindy Ruff now there in Buffalo. They haven't been doing great this year, but he obviously knows that the interchangeability. Maybe he saw Byram do that. He's like, all right, we need to get that in there.
That's the thing. Like some of these coaches are talking like from experience as trying to penalty kill against these elite power plays. Some like Carberry are speaking from experience of having that elite power play. So it's interesting, to talk to coaches at different parts of the standings.
Well, that Carberry-Washington power play is interesting because obviously they have that OV one-timer, but that's like also one thing that teams have to account for more than like probably any other one-timer in the league, minus maybe Draisaitl at this point, but you can't really do anything about McDavid Draisaitl power play we've seen. But OV, so people are like countering for that, and then they can't do anything because they can do other stuff too because they've really stepped it up in Washington. We will move on from that notebook. Thanks for that, though, John. That's some interesting tidbits from those guys there. And I want to get into Levi's top 5 for the week. One guy who made some headlines over the holidays, Jonathan Toews, and he might be ready to come back to the NHL either this season or next. Levi, where would you like to see him end up? Jonathan Toews.
Yeah, so I've put together my top 5 this week based on Jonathan Toews coming back. Like right now, this season, I believe the latest he has to come back is the 7th
of March.
The 7th of March, yeah. So he's got some time to decide still. But yeah, he said in an interview that he'd be lying if if it wasn't something he still wants to do, and he doesn't feel like his hockey career is over. Now nobody knows where he's at in terms of his on ice productivity and just how he looks as a player. I think he's still got a good amount left in the tank to at least be a third, fourth line center, like a guy that just really fills a need for a lot of teams. And so that's what I've crafted together here. So we'll start off at number 5. At number 5, I actually have the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Oh, get that team even older.
Exactly. We were talking about it. We were talking about it earlier. They're a bubble playoff team right now. I think they're just either in the second wildcard spot or just outside of it at the time of this. We're recording this. He's played with Sid a lot. They are super open to having old guys on the team. Jonathan Toews is 36, so this would be nothing out of the ordinary for the Penguins. But I do think he could come in and kind of give them that little bump just to get them in the playoffs. And maybe they make some noise. I don't know if they do, but I don't think Pittsburgh would say no to Jonathan Toews coming in. At 4th, we have a real contender, the Colorado Avalanche. This is a team that's been so banged up, especially in their forward group for the entire year. They're really putting things together now. I mean, they've completely turned it around. I remember there was a time we were talking about, is this team going to make the playoffs? So they've turned it around, but they still need some center depth, I believe. I think that they've got Ross Colton, Casey Middlestat, Toews, I think, could come in and facilitate some offense a bit better than those two can. So that's where I have them. I have them at 4. On to number 3. This is another bit of a shocker. The Detroit Red Wings, winners of 4 straight. If they haven't won the last 4 games and kind of looked to turn it around, I don't think I have them on this list. But at this very moment, especially with Patrick Kane being there, I don't think you can leave them off this list. I envisioning him actually jumping up to second line if he goes there and replacing Andrew Kopp and centering Kane and DeBrincat, which seems like a crazy line. I know it's 2025, but I still really like the sounds of that. Playing with his old line mate and Patrick Kane, I think that Detroit actually makes a bit of sense if they look like they're going to make the playoffs. And then on the top 2, I think the top 2, these are the clear-cut 1 and 2. First, Toronto. They've needed center depth, seems for forever. And I would envision them bringing him in similar. He's not going to be as good, but kind of like what they did when they brought Ryan O'Reilly in, just getting a guy who can really play center position and play it well and be big in the playoffs. So I think Toronto, looking for a third line center, I could see him going there. But at number 1, the Winnipeg Jets. This is his hometown team. They are thriving right now. I think they're 3rd in the NHL in points. They're just a point off of the Golden Knights for that first place spot. and they are loaded everywhere, I would say, except for maybe center. I think you want to take Vladislav Nemesnikov or maybe Adam Lowry. He could easily go in that second line spot or that third line spot. So, yeah, hometown team, a great chance for him to really go and win a cup, and a team that actually needs him. I think the Jets make a lot of sense at number 1.
All right, before we move on, Josh, you got 5 of those teams which win. If you're Jonathan Toews, where are you signing right there?
I mean, Winnipeg's tempting because the hometown team, they also have the most opportunity to play up in the lineup, and especially if it's down the stretch this season. Because if he plays well, maybe he could cash in the offseason. So I think Winnipeg would probably be my pick if I'm Jonathan Toews, just because, like you said, there's an opportunity to maybe play second-line center there. Vladislav Nemesnikov, he's more of a depth forward throughout his entire career, so I would lean the Jets.
And a little less pressure than Toronto, too, right? You go to Toronto as Johnny Toews, they're going to expect you to be like prime Johnny Toews, but he's who knows what he's like, but we know he's not going to be like 2010, 2011 Toews.
Yeah,
so.
I feel like the ceiling is third line center, like on a contender. Obviously, he could be first line center.
Great face-offs,
crappy
PK, but like I totally agree with you.
And like I'd want the Jets to swing for the fences more than bringing in Toews, but I do like the rationale where it's like hometown. He can join, a center group that like Lowry and Nemesnikov are like really solid, and then obviously you have Scheifele. Like it's not like he wouldn't make a difference. Like, but is he fourth line? Is he third line? I don't know.
I think you could put him anywhere on that lineup since a boost, probably, to have Jonathan Toews on your team. Even if he's not playing every day, like it's just one of those guys that just helps, even in the dressing room too. And seeing Toews back in hockey would be awesome. And speaking of reasons why hockey is awesome, why we love hockey this week, we're going over to the KHL to watch Kazan Akbar's game where Nikita Dinyak, look at this clip right here. He's just skating, and what happens? His phone just pops out of his pants right there. And ref brings to the bench, and nobody's taking responsibility. He's like, whose is it? Oh.
Embarrassed to claim.
I'm wondering if ref clicks it on, sees him on the front cover there.
Doesn't he look so shameful
He's just
there?
you're like, what? And so he's saying in this interview here, he's basically saying it like slid into his pants. Or kind of like, it was totally an accident. Do you guys buy that that's an accident right there?
I mean, it doesn't make sense that he would have it in there on purpose. So, like, I guess I believe him because it's just so outlandish. Like, how I actually thought it was one of those diabetic, like, insulin reader things because it's so wide. When you see it on the ice, it looks so wide. I'm like, is that a phone or is that something else? But yeah, his rationale was very interesting, and he mentioned how, he equated it to like how a smoker would put a cigarette in his ear and then forget all day that the cigarette is there. I guess you could also say a pen for someone who doesn't smoke. So he knew it was there, but then I guess forgot to take it out, and then it just felt normal until it fell out. Again, the things don't quite add up, but the guy's embarrassed, obviously, and it's like a viral moment you don't really want to be a part of. So I feel bad for him.
It's such a only in the K.
Yes.
Moment. It's such a thing that would only happen there, and I think it's funny because it's
making sure his paycheck went through. Maybe.
Literally. But I'm wondering if with the cigarette thing, Josh, you were saying before the show, is like maybe he's played a game with a dart behind.
Sounds like a guy with experience of playing a game with a cigarette.
It's weird for him to have a metaphor ready that quick.
Just pull that out of thin air.
He's like,
it's not as bad as the time I played a game with a bogey behind my ear, but that's I feel like something Mika Kiprusoff would do with the Calgary Flames back in the day. That guy was half a pack between periods, I'm pretty sure. But love hockey for that. Love just the moments that it's not just serious about the game. It's just the funny thing. I wonder what the coach says though too. It's like, are you kidding me, buddy? Like, you gotta need that.
Yeah.
Anyways, though, we are moving away from why we love hockey and moving into the best part of the show. Levi, take the stage. It's time for some top shelf trivia.
Yeah, I am. I'm fired up for trivia this week for a number of reasons. I think first of all, I have something. First of all, actually, before anything, we've got the leaderboard back. Now, Kyle's been off for a couple shows, so what we decided to do is, Josh, you contribute to Kyle's points is what we're going to do. So, not only
franchise.
Yeah, there you go. Not
a
only
really long tick tally there.
Yeah, I got to go all the way down to Josh's name there. So not only do they get a point, but they get something a lot more special than a point. For the first time in Top Shelf Trivia history, we actually have a prize.
Oh,
whoa!
And I'm gonna get this bad boy out right here. This is gonna be really exciting.
An unboxing.
Yeah, a bit of an unboxing here. I wanted to wait until the
vlog
show was on.
Vlog in the Top Shelf.
Have a look at this.
Come on.
Bling.
Come on. All right. I got it.
Incredible. It's the Top Shelf Champion of Trivia. Josh, I'm going to give this to you to put
Oh,
on.
Thank you.
As
It's an honor.
the reigning champ right now.
It's an honor.
But yeah,
Keep it warm for me.
Fired
Some
up.
heavy,
will
some
ya?
heavy
Yeah,
bling
that
right
looks like
now.
it really
Yeah.
Cuban
weighing down the neck. There.
Yeah.
But yeah, the other reason I'm fired up for trivia is because we're doing a crazy one today. It's funny you're talking about the phone on the ice because also this week the Hershey Bears did their classic teddy bear toss, obviously, and they broke a record. I think they had over 100,000 teddy bears on the ice this week. So a lot of things going on the ice, and it prompted me to go down memory lane and kind of figure out, what are the most infamous things that have been thrown onto the ice in an NHL game. So I have a list of 10. I don't think it's entirely accurate. Maybe back in the day there was some, who knows what got thrown on the ice, really. But these are the most, I would say, famously thrown.
So it's not a quantity thing. It's like a frequency /
Yes.
like well known.
Yes. Well,
Gotcha.
I would say
wow,
a
okay.
bit of popularity, a mix of yes. Kind of well known, but also you'll see 1 through 5 are kind of things that have been thrown on the ice more. But yeah, I'm interested to see how this one goes. We're gonna go rapid fire, so you either know all 10 of these or you don't. We're gonna start with our defending champ, Josh. First pick of the board. What is one of the top 10 things you think has been thrown on the ice in an NHL game?
Octopus in Detroit.
Octopus
right?
Okay.
in Detroit is correct. I've got that down as the third most popular thing.
I'm gonna go rats in Florida.
Rats in Florida is also correct. Obviously, classic tradition with Scott Mellenby there. That's number 2 on the list.
It doesn't have to be connected to a certain franchise. It can be a general.
Yeah.
Okay, jerseys.
Jerseys is also on the list, John. Nicely done. I got that there at 4. Yeah, I mean, one of the more kind of commonly, a hater move for somebody to throw the jersey out onto the ice. Back to you.
Catfish in Nashville.
Catfish. I have catfish, fish, shark, all grouped in together.
Nice.
Because all 3 of those things have been tossed out on the ice. Shark in San Jose a long time ago did happen. But yeah, catfish in Nashville has happened a number of times. When I was going back and looking through the tape, I found a game in the playoffs, I think against the Pens, and the Sportsnet scorebug actually, one got tossed on the ice and there was a catfish counter. Yeah, it was the sixth catfish of the game.
Nice.
So really fun stuff there. But yeah, that's true. You guys are still missing number 1. I don't know.
I think I got his hats, right?
Yeah.
Hats.
Yeah.
Hats number 1.
Gotta
Kind of what has made the NHL, because it's the only league where you're kind of encouraged at times to put things onto the.
It kind of sucks if you're wearing a nice hat because you
That
feel
too,
like you
yeah.
have to do it.
Have
It's
you-
like it's my favorite
Has
hat.
anyone here thrown a hat onto the ice?
I don't think I have.
I've
not.
never done it.
I did it
either.
once as a kid.
Did you?
Once.
Okay. Yeah, because I've never showed up to a game wearing a hat being like, I don't really want this hat. I always want the hat.
Exactly.
That's my rationale.
Got to have a bonus hat just with you. to toss,
Exactly.
like-
Yeah.
I usually sit in the nosebleeds. I don't know if I have to.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the other thing too. You
Last
gotta
thing you want
Just
to do is
giving a
throw it.
present
Just give
to
someone else a hat. Yeah.
But yeah, you've got the top 5 here. Now is where the list gets a bit more specific. I'm interested to see if your memories will be able to, think of some of these.
I hope this is on Andrew Hammond and the Hamburglar.
John, that is
I think
correct.
Curtis Lazar ate it off
He
the
did.
ice.
He also did
Awesome
that. Hamburgers when the Hamburglar, I believe 2015, he went on that crazy run.
It's like 20-1 or something like that to get in the playoffs.
Yeah,
It was
wild.
And
insane.
it choked in the playoffs.
Yeah, it's also true. But yeah, it's hamburgers. That's correct. I think it was a couple games where after the Sens won, they chucked him on the ice, and you were right. Curtis Lazar did eat one. So good tidbit. We are 6 through. Everyone has 2 points here. Looking very nice. Back to you, Josh.
This might be pretty niche because I'm not sure how many times it happened, but I remember when the Leafs were really bad at their lowest, fans were throwing waffles on the ice.
Oh,
Waffles
good
is on the
one.
list.
That's a good one.
Waffles is on the list. It happened, I think, at least twice back in 2010. They were very bad, and I don't know why it was an Eggo waffle. A couple times got chucked out there. Don't know really what it represented, but it's on the list nonetheless. So that's 3 for Josh. Back to you, Aidan.
I think I'm in trouble here right now, is what I think. I'm just really thinking, what could it be? I don't know.
These last 3 are pretty. I think one of these is very, very infamous.
Well, that's really unfortunate for me now.
It is
I wish
unfortunate for you.
because I'm probably not going to get there. And it's just the NHL, because I was just thinking for the whole time, when's Teddy Bears going to be up there?
No,
It
yeah,
can't be Teddy Bears.
yeah,
That's
just
a junior
NHL.
thing.
And I'll say too, I should have kicked it off. This is fans throwing things onto the ice, so an actual fan is not on this list. 'Cause
Okay.
I know a couple
Good to
times
know.
they've jumped the boards and streaks.
Gotcha.
but,
Well, I'm just going to take a shot. I'll say cans. Just
Cans?
people throwing litter in the ice.
I left cans off the
Fair
list.
enough.
Not
Yeah,
exactly
I'm-
encouraged.
I didn't know it. Yep.
Back to you, John.
Kind of drawing a blank. I'm gonna just guess like a bra, like
I was
someone getting a little crazy and
Yeah,
throwing
yes,
some
that's what
clothes on the ice.
Bra has been, I will say, I didn't put it on the list because it was I think it was like a preseason game, something very niche that a bra got out there. But I didn't even see the footage of it. I saw it was Wade Belak doing an interview after saying like, "Oh, this is great for the game."
Nice.
You're not wrong in the fact that it's been thrown out there,
Just
but
didn't make the cut.
yeah, not famous enough for me to have on my list.
Okay.
Fair enough.
Back to you, Josh.
Okay, I'm gonna go flowers. Maybe with Marc-Andre Fleury and just maybe
That's a pretty
players
good
being
guess.
celebrated.
That is a good guess. Flowers is not on the list. I couldn't find any instances of flowers.
Well, I think that's a strike each.
I was gonna say,
he's got
yeah.
an extra one though, so I think that's. I think
Giving
you get
away-
to keep your chain,
I
right?
like it.
What about hints? Can we try to?
Yeah, we can get through it. Are we okay with giving Josh the win and just letting you guys?
Oh
go
well,
in
no. If
together?
we're going hints, I want right back in there.
I'll give you guys a hint that kind of for each of these. We got 3 left. One of them is another food item. One of them, I can't even give you a hint. It's ridiculous, really. It exploded on the ice. I'll say that.
Oh,
And then the last one was an animal.
Was an animal.
An animal, yes.
Oh,
Another
boy.
animal.
Did a bat get thrown on the ice? Or was that basketball? That was basketball.
Basketball Manu
Yeah,
Ginobili.
Manu grabbed the bat.
Yeah.
dog.
Not a
That would
dog.
be sad, man.
Right direction, not a dog. We'll give you one more guess, Josh.
You said there was food, right?
There was
I'm just
food.
gonna take a guess. Hot dogs.
Hot dogs on the list.
Yeah.
Hot
Is that a
dogs
Phil
on the
Kessel
list.
reference, or?
It was not, and it's funny you say that because when I found this video, I think the top comment was like, "Oh, crazy! There's a hot dog in the ice," and Phil Kessel wasn't. But no, back in 2013, Bruins Devils game, Tyler Seguin in the shootout went down, scored. Someone chucked a hot dog on the ice while in the midst of a shootout, so they made him redo it. Scored again, no
Okay.
hot dog. But yeah, it's a hilarious clip if you go and watch it. There's just he shoots the puck and a hot dog slides through the crease.
That's fantastic.
Pretty crazy. But yeah.
Good win.
Give Josh the win
Good
again.
quality
Another
win,
win for
That's two in a
Josh.
row.
Thank
Josh
you.
/ Kyle.
Wow.
The last 2 on the list here, just before we get out of here. 2008 Devils Flyers. Someone threw a stink bomb on the ice, which is crazy. There's footage of that. And the last one, this one I'm disappointed you guys didn't get, and maybe someone watching this has thought of this. 1988 Kings Habs, a live chicken.
Oh,
Oh,
Live chicken, and
that's
there's
way better than
John, that
dog.
was like-
no one's throwing a dog over the glass.
John, you've been like 20 when that
Yeah,
happened. How
exactly.
do you forget that
Actually,
one?
88. That's when I was born.
Yeah.
So,
there you go.
just a wee lad.
There's
watching
footage
that.
of that. Go look it up. There is a live chicken on the ice. He's got a purple necktie thing on. It's incredible. I don't know how you get a live chicken into a game in the first place, but it's been thrown on the ice. There you
All
go.
right. Well, Josh, I
Good.
appreciate you being here and taking the chain. Unfortunately, you're going to have to leave it. But next time you are here on the show, we'll make sure you retain your chain,
Yes.
no matter who's got the belt at that point or the chain at that point. I just
Yeah.
didn't want to say chain again. You know, whoever's got the title at that point, chain. Anyways, that's all the time, though, we've got here at Top Shelf, presented by our friends over at Skyscanner. For Levi Smith, John Matisz, our winner of Top Shelf Trivia, Josh Wegman, and myself, Aidan Thakkar, we will see you next time.